What's going on, everyone? So we got the phone call from Jim that we saw in the original season 3 trailer, and lo and behold, it turns out that it's Thomas. It's not Thomas. We all knew it wasn't Thomas. Jim even knew it wasn't Thomas. But one of the things that I talked about and I made a previous video on was that I felt like the phone call and the setup was rather lackluster for something that I thought had a lot of potential to kind of set up and use as a way to manipulate as well as break Jim and his family and kind of create that gap and that distance even further, right? Now, I did say in that video that I hope that they keep expanding on it. I hope that this is something that in hindsight I look back and go, you know what? I'm actually really glad they did that. And we saw in episode 4, season 3, that we got another phone call, right? And this time it was set up through Ethan answering the phone. So gets the phone call, Ethan answers. It's, same thing. Thomas tries to relay and have conversation with Ethan and then explains to Ethan that, hey, mom is alive. And not only is mom alive, but she's in an ambulance and she's on her way to you, right? And that is something specifically I talked about that I really thought that they should have done. So I'm glad that they did go that route. I'm glad that some of the examples that I used to kind of set up and manipulate not only Jim, but the Matthews family period, they actually did. Now, look, I'm not one of those people that watched this season already. I know there are some people that have made videos and continue to make videos and people that have seen the entire season. I am not one of those people. I am somebody that is watching this in real time as you. So anytime I make a theory, anytime I come up with an idea, anytime I express something in any of these videos, it is simply just me coming up with the idea myself or just using an educated guess based on information we have, or even sometimes in the comment section where we have back and forth and enjoy some discussion, right? And so it was great to kind of say like, oh, because it just is something that made sense. It was something that was like, hey, you know what? Like, this is something that you could use Jim, give Jim information that turns out to be true, and start to gain Jim's trust. Now, the setup was through Ethan, which is fine, right? That's still great, and you're still getting to the same conclusion. Because, obviously, again, Jim is not going to believe that it's Thomas. He's a grown adult. He knows he knows what this place can do. He knows the manipulation. He already dealt with a voice before that he thought was a person and it wasn't. It was just a manipulation. But how do you further distance this family? Right? One of the key things that Thomas, quote unquote, on the phone said to Jim was that, they're not your kids anymore. Right? And it begs the question of like, okay, well, what does that mean? Where do you get that to? Now, for me personally, and of course I want to hear your thoughts and opinions, I interpret that as not as like, oh, Tabitha was sleeping around or anything like. I don't think it was anything like that. I think it's as simple as there is a clear disconnect. There is a clear disruption in that family, right? Ethan and Julie seem to want nothing to do with Jim, right? And Jim senses it. He knows it. The family's there. He, in many ways, is being blamed for Tabitha. And, or his children are looking at him as like, you should have stopped her. You didn't. You let her go. And now she's probably dead. And this ambulance comes up, tells you, hey, she's alive. She's going to show up in an ambulance. Go help her. Ethan runs out. Jim or Boyd stops Ethan from doing that, and then Jim and Boyd and Randall, they go to go help, and lo and behold, Tabitha is in the ambulance. So you just got information from the voice on the phone that turned out to be accurate and true and helped you save your wife and the mother. That is a great way to manipulate not only the children, but to manipulate Jim. Because now when that phone rings, now the curiosity kicks in of like, okay, well, what other information can I get? What other information can they give me? And that's also a great way to kind of create a rift in the family if you wanted to. Kind of drive a wedge even further between Ethan, Julie, and Jim. Does Tabitha, does she kind of develop this obsession? Does she develop this, like, I need to keep going on my journey here. I'm chosen. I have this path. I need to, and now Jim is with the children, and it's kind of just Jim and the children, but there, again, is this growing disconnect that is being constantly kind of provoked. And then the phone call. One of the things that I talked about was, you could keep, because Jim is not going to just believe. Right? Now, he has kind of had his own kind of delusions and stuff where he thought like this was a big CIA operative or whatever, right? And, him and Randall kind of went off the rails a little bit. But Jim is sane, right? Like, Jim knows, like, hey, no, like, I'm not an idiot here. Like, I know what you're trying to do. So how do you change his perspective? How do you change his mind? You continuously give him clues, right? So, like, for example, when he first got the phone call and the voice said, that Ethan and Julie shouldn't have left them so close to dark out. But it didn't lead to anything, which is why I was disappointed, right? Because I felt like that was an opportunity. Like, what if Julie and Ethan ended up getting trapped in the barn or something? And he goes to try to help them and ends up freeing them. They make it by the hair of their chinny chin chin back into the house before the monsters can get them. And the voice ends up saving the kids. And even though Jim still doesn't believe that it's Thomas, well, now you basically threw him a bone. Hey, your children could have died, but I helped. Right? You still don't believe it's me, Dad? Okay, here, let me give you another thing. Your wife, she's still alive. She's on her way. She's in an ambulance, right? And then, boom, the ambulance shows up. It's Tabitha. Now you're 2 for 2, right? And now you start building that trust through Jim to get him in a compromised position or to manipulate him in ways that you want to manipulate him or even to just break him at some point. Set him up to what happens if you set him up to where he ends up becoming monster food or something. I still feel like they should have used that phone call to lead into something with Julie and Ethan. And then you have the follow-up call that we got in this previous episode. Right? And I just think I still am a little disappointed in how it started, but I am glad that that wasn't it. Because they kind of made it seem like it was this significant moment. Like it was this like, hey, this is a build-up moment into something. Right? This isn't just a normal phone. Like, no, you're going to love this phone call. Don't go nowhere, right? And then we got the phone call and it was just kind of like, man, like I hope that they expand on this more. I hope that they continue to grow and develop on this more, right? Like, I don't know. Again, I'm just somebody that's watching this in real time. I don't know what the next episode is going to bring. I don't know how far they're going to go with this. So, I can only express what I can express in real time based on the information I have. And even that original phone call, in my opinion, I still believe was a bit disappointing. I still believe it was a bit lackluster. I wish that they would have kind of built on that more and then continued that momentum into this episode with the phone call for Ethan, and then you get the information on the ambulance, and now you have that. Now, they still could very well continue on that path, right? They could still very well kind of establish that and use this as a way to break Jim, manipulate Jim, kind of get in Jim's head. Ethan now, his first phone call he was given information and insight that now he is going to know, like, oh, every time that phone rings, that could be some details about something important, my mom or my family or whatever, right? So now you can kind of use that as a way to manipulate Ethan. And also one other point that I've seen some people express, and then even in the live stream after the episode airs, I always do a live stream after. I saw a lot of people that were like, yeah, but there was no cord in the phone, so how's that? But that's just how it is, period. right? Like there's no electrical panel or anything or any of the lighting. Like all of FROMVILLE makes zero sense. Like the way that there's electricity, food just magically appears. I mean, the fact that the phone didn't have a cord, it would have been odd at this point if it did, right? Like that's like one of the few things where it's just like it would have been strange if it was the other way, if it was connected and had something, right? But he also pulled it down to try to break it so Ethan couldn't talk on the phone ever again. But I think Jim is going to pick up that phone call. I think Jim now is going to listen and okay, let's see how this goes, right? Like, gave me information to help me save my wife, right? Gave me some information that maybe could have helped my children, right? Nothing, my children didn't appear in danger, but maybe it would have happened if I didn't run there at that time, right? So that's 2 for 2. Maybe it does kind of build. I wish that they would have, I wish Julie and Ethan would have been in a compromised state to where Jim ends up saving them. And then now you have the ambulance and it's like, Jim, you know, Dad, you don't believe it's me. It really is. Because, I mean, the voice says, I want to help. But now, also, Jim knows that this thing's manipulative, that this thing definitely isn't Thomas, because it also said your kids aren't your kids anymore. So clearly, Jim knows that this thing is malevolent, where I think if you would have approached it in a way to where it doesn't appear that way, no, I'm on your side. I'm your friend. It really is me, Dad. I'm trying to help you, right? Like, and you kind of go down that route and then use that to manipulate Jim. I think that would have been a better approach personally. But again, we'll see how this continues to build. We'll see how this continues to grow. Just wanted to do a follow-up video because of my previous video and kind of give my thoughts on the continued expansion of this phone call. But nonetheless, as always, this is a discussion and I pass a question on to you. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. What do you think? How do you feel? What are your thoughts? Are you still a little disappointed about the phone call? Do you think like, no, this is much better? They're clearly continuing to expand that. Did you think that the original phone call was lackluster? Did you think, no, that was great? You really approached that or liked the approach to that? Again, however you feel, whatever your thoughts are, I'd love to hear it. So let me know down in the comments below. Whether you agree, disagree, let me know. That being said, if you haven't liked this video, hit that like button. Helps me a lot. Lets me enjoy these types of videos, and I truly appreciate it. Not subscribe to the channel, hit that subscribe button. Turn on the bell notifications. Appreciate y'all. See you in the next one. Thank you.